Welcome to Furious HOA Karens. The clubhouse closet had a stash, and she had excuses. Denise Porter waved a box cutter in my face and screamed that having one on my keychain meant I had opened packages that were not mine. "This is not getting delayed," she yelled, her voice cracking with fury. She stood between me and my front door, blocking the narrow walkway with a rolling file cart that looked like it had been stolen from an office supply clearance sale. "The charity cash box went missing 2 days ago," she said, "and you were the last one near it during the neighborhood cleanup." I held up both hands, palms out, trying to signal calm while my brain scrambled to figure out what the hell she was talking about. I am a field service engineer, which means I spend most of my week in server rooms and client offices across Austin, Texas, and I barely had time to grab my mail, let alone steal from a charity drive I did not even know existed. Denise is the social committee chair for the Harbor Point Residential Association, and she has spent the last 6 months acting like she runs a federal agency instead of a boring suburban HOA. She wore a blue blazer with the hood up even though it was 75 degrees, and she clutched a laminated policy sheet in one hand like it was a warrant. Behind her, a golf cart with a blinking amber light sat parked at an angle, its front bumper practically kissing my driveway. "I do not even know what cash box you are talking about," I said, keeping my voice level. Denise shook the box cutter again, and I took a half step back. "The cleanup was Saturday morning," she snapped. "You walked past the donation table. You were carrying tools. I saw you." Her tone had that edge people get when they have already decided you are guilty and they are just waiting for you to confess. "I was carrying a toolbox because I fixed Mrs. Lynn's sprinkler valve," I said. "I did not touch any donation table." Denise smiled, but it was the kind of smile that made my stomach drop. "This community has standards," she said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "And I do not need proof. I have paperwork and vibes." That line hit me like a slap. Paperwork and vibes. She said it like it was an official policy, like the HOA bylaws had a section on vibes. I opened my mouth to argue, but she cut me off. "I have already submitted everything to the management company," she said. "They will be contacting you about restitution and possible removal." My chest tightened. Removal. She was talking about trying to force me out of my own house over a missing cash box I had never even seen. "I need to get to work," I said, stepping to the side to go around her. She shifted the file cart to block me again. "Not until we clear this up," she said. "You can wait." That is when I realized this was not going to be a one-time thing. Denise was not just angry. She was on a mission. And the way she kept glancing at the file cart, like she had a whole binder of evidence ready to go, told me she had been planning this. I pulled out my phone and opened the camera app, angling it so the lens was visible. "If we are clearing anything up," I said, "I want it on record." Denise's face went red. "You do not get to record me," she hissed. "I am performing HOA duties. I can record whatever I want on my own property," I said. She lunged forward and tried to swipe the phone out of my hand, but I pulled it back just in time. The box cutter clattered to the ground, and for a second we both just stared at it. Then she bent down, scooped it up, and jabbed it toward me again. "You are going to regret this," she said, her voice low and shaking. I got in my truck and locked the doors before she could do anything else. My hands were shaking. I sat there for a minute, watching her in the rearview mirror as she dragged the file cart back to her golf cart and pulled out a clipboard. She wrote something down, ripped off a sheet, and walked back to stick it under my windshield wiper. I did not even read it. I just pulled out of the driveway and headed to my first service call of the day, my mind racing. The whole drive I kept replaying what she had said. Paperwork and vibes. Submitted everything. Restitution. It sounded insane, but I knew how HOAs worked. They could fine you into the ground if they wanted to, and if Denise had already filed a complaint, I was going to be buried in notices and threats before I even had a chance to defend myself. Harbor Point is one of those newer subdivisions where every house looks like it was stamped out of the same mold. And the HOA rules are stricter than most lease agreements. The mailbox cluster is identical brushed metal units arranged in a grid, and there is a strict rule about what color your front door can be. I moved here 2 years ago because the commute was good and the price was right, but the HOA has been a constant low-level headache. Denise took over as social committee chair about 6 months ago, and ever since then, the vibe has shifted from annoying to hostile. She started sending out weekly reminders about trash can placement, began patrolling the neighborhood in that stupid golf cart, and made it her personal mission to enforce every single rule in the book. I had managed to avoid her for the most part, but apparently my luck just ran out. By the time I got home that evening, there were 3 more notices taped to my door. I pulled them down and read them one by one. The first was a formal complaint about the missing charity cash box, listing me as the primary suspect and demanding I contact the management company within 48 hours. The second was a separate notice about an alleged package theft from the clubhouse mailroom 2 weeks ago, which I also knew nothing about. The third was a warning that my vehicle registration was under review and my parking privileges might be suspended pending investigation. I felt my blood pressure spike. She was stacking charges. She was not just accusing me of one thing. She was building a case to make it look like I was some kind of serial thief. And the worst part was, I had no idea how to fight it. I did not steal anything. I did not even go near the charity table. But how do you prove a negative? I called the management company the next morning and got a receptionist who sounded like she would rather be anywhere else. I explained the situation, and she put me on hold for 10 minutes before transferring me to a regional supervisor named Greg. Greg sounded tired, but not unkind. He listened while I laid out the timeline, and then he sighed. "Look," he said, "Denise has been filing a lot of complaints lately, like a lot. We have been trying to sort through them, but she is very insistent, and she has paperwork for everything." "What kind of paperwork?" I asked. "Template forms, mostly," he said. "Incident reports, witness statements, photos. But here is the thing. A bunch of them are identical. Like word-for-word identical, just with different dates." That raised a red flag for me. "So you think she is making stuff up?" I asked. "I think she is very motivated," Greg said carefully. "But I cannot ignore the complaints. You need to come in and give a statement, and we will go from there." He gave me an address for the management company office and told me to bring any evidence I had. Evidence of what? I thought. Evidence that I did not do something? That afternoon, Denise posted something on the neighborhood Facebook group. I did not see it right away because I barely check social media, but a neighbor texted me a screenshot. It was a long post with the heading Community Safety Alert, and it went on for paragraphs about a pattern of thefts in the neighborhood, urging everyone to lock their cars and report any suspicious activity. She did not name me directly, but she mentioned a resident who had been seen near multiple theft sites and was currently under investigation. The comments section lit up immediately. People I had never even spoken to started speculating about who it was, and a few of them tagged my name. By the time I logged in, the post had over 50 comments, and half of them were calling for me to be kicked out of the neighborhood. I felt sick. She was turning the entire community against me, and I had not even been able to tell my side yet. I needed help. I called my buddy Eric, who works in IT security and has dealt with his own share of HOA drama. He came over that night with his laptop and a six-pack, and we started going through everything. First, we pulled up the HOA bylaws and management company policies. Then we looked at the dates Denise had listed in her complaints. Eric pointed at the screen. "Look at this," he said. "She says the clubhouse mailroom theft happened on a Tuesday at 2 in the afternoon. Where were you?" I checked my work calendar. "I was on site in Round Rock," I said. 3 hours away. "Do you have proof?" he asked. I pulled up my service ticket log and showed him the timestamp. The client signed off at 3:30, and I had toll receipts from the drive back. Eric grinned. "That is your alibi right there," he said. "Print everything. We spent the next 2 hours building a timeline, cross-referencing every accusation with my work schedule, toll records, and even security footage from my doorbell camera. It was tedious, but it felt like progress. By the end of the night, I had a 3-inch binder full of documents, and Eric had helped me organize it into a presentation. "You are going to walk into that management office and bury her in paper," he said. "And if she tries to argue, you pull out the receipts." Literally. But before I could even schedule the meeting, things got worse. The next morning, I walked out to my truck and found a bright orange sticker on the windshield. It was an official-looking notice with the Harbor Point logo, and it said my vehicle was in violation of parking regulations and would be towed within 24 hours if I did not resolve the issue. I ripped it off and read the fine print. The violation was listed as unauthorized overnight parking in a resident space, which made no sense because I was parked in my own driveway. I called the management company again, and Greg sounded even more exhausted than before. "Denise submitted a parking complaint," he said. "She is claiming your truck does not have a current registration sticker." I walked outside with my phone and took a photo of my license plate. The registration sticker was right there, clear as day, and it did not expire for another 8 months. I texted the photo to Greg. He replied a minute later. "Yeah, I see it. I will clear the violation. But you need to get in here soon. She is filing new stuff every day, and I cannot keep up." I drove to the management office that afternoon, the evidence binder sitting on my passenger seat like a legal briefcase. The office was in a bland strip mall on the edge of Austin, sandwiched between a tax prep place and a nail salon. Inside, the receptionist pointed me toward a small conference room where Greg was waiting. He looked like he had not slept in a week. "Thanks for coming in," he said, shaking my hand. "We need to sort this out before it gets even more out of control." I laid the binder on the table and started walking him through everything. I showed him my work schedules, the toll receipts, the doorbell camera footage. I showed him the timestamps that proved I was nowhere near the clubhouse when the mailroom theft happened. Greg nodded along, taking notes, and for the first time since this whole nightmare started, I felt like someone was actually listening. Then the door opened, and Denise walked in. If you are enjoying this story, hit that like button and subscribe for more wild HOA drama. She was pulling the rolling file cart behind her, and she had a stack of papers in her arms that looked like she had just raided a copy room. Greg stood up. "Denise, this is a private meeting," he said. She ignored him and dropped the papers on the table. "I have new evidence," she said, her voice sharp and confident. "I have witness statements, transaction logs, and photographic proof that he has been stealing from this community for weeks." I stared at her. "What are you talking about?" I said. She opened one of the folders and pulled out a printed photo. It was grainy and dark, but it showed someone standing near the clubhouse mailroom door. "You cannot even see the person's face," I said. "That could be anyone." She smiled. "It was taken at the same time as the theft," she said. "And you match the description." "What description?" I said. "Mail," she said flatly. I looked at Greg. "Are you hearing this?" I said. He held up a hand. "Denise, we have been over this. You need actual evidence, not just a blurry photo." She pulled out another sheet. "I have transaction logs," she said. "This shows that packages have gone missing on days when he was home." Greg took the sheet and read it. "This is just a list of delivery dates," he said. "It does not prove anything." Denise leaned forward, her voice dropping to a hiss. "This community has standards," she said, "and I am not going to let a thief destroy what we have built here." I took a breath and forced myself to stay calm. I pulled out my phone and opened the doorbell camera app. "I have footage," I said, "from my front door. It shows the exact time I left and came back on every day she is accusing me." Greg leaned in to look at the screen, and I played back a clip from the day of the mailroom theft. The timestamp showed me leaving at 7 in the morning and not coming back until after 6. "There is no way I could have been at the clubhouse at 2 in the afternoon," I said. "I was 3 hours away." Denise snatched the phone out of my hand before I could stop her. Greg stood up. "Denise, give that back," he said. She held it up, squinting at the screen. "This proves nothing," she said. "Timestamps can be faked." "Give me my phone," I said, my voice hard. She set it down on the table with a loud clack, but she was smiling. "You think you are so smart," she said. "But I have more." She opened another folder and pulled out a printed spreadsheet. "This is a portal audit log," she said. "It shows every time someone accessed the clubhouse security system. And guess whose login appears on the day of the theft?" I felt my stomach twist. "I do not even have a login," I said. Denise tapped the paper. "It is right here," she said. "Your name. Your account." Greg took the sheet and scanned it. "This is not his account," he said after a moment. "This is a guest access code." Denise's face went red. "It is tied to his address," she said. "That does not mean he used it," Greg said. "Guest codes are shared. Anyone could have used it." That is when I saw it. The spreadsheet Denise had printed was a portal export, and at the bottom of the page there was a line of metadata showing the account that had generated the report. The username was partially visible, and it was not mine. It was hers. I pointed at the screen. "That report was generated from your account," I said. Denise tried to grab the sheet back, but Greg held it out of reach. "She is right," he said, reading the footer. "This export came from your login, Denise." "So what?" she snapped. "I am the social chair. I have access to everything." "But you just tried to claim it was his account," Greg said. His voice had an edge now. "You said it was tied to his address. Were you lying, or did you just not check?" Denise opened her mouth, closed it, and then turned and stormed out of the room, dragging the file cart behind her. The door slammed so hard the wall shook. Greg sat down and rubbed his face. "That woman is going to give me an ulcer," he said. I closed the binder and leaned back in my chair. "So what happens now?" I asked. Greg looked at the papers Denise had left behind and shook his head. "I am going to go through all of this," he said. "And I am going to pull the actual security footage and access logs. If she has been manipulating records, that is a serious problem." He looked at me. "In the meantime, keep documenting everything. If she tries anything else, call me immediately." I left the office feeling like I had just survived a cage match, but I knew it was not over. Denise was not the kind of person who backed down. She was going to escalate. And I was right. The next morning I woke up to a text from my neighbor across the street. She sent me a photo of a tow truck parked at the end of the block. The driver was standing next to my truck with a clipboard, writing something down. I threw on clothes and ran outside. The driver looked up as I approached. "You the owner?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "What is going on?" He handed me a work order. "Got a call from your HOA," he said. "Unauthorized vehicle. They want it removed." I stared at the paper. "This is my driveway," I said. "I live here." He shrugged. "I just go where they tell me, man. If you have a problem, you need to talk to them." I pulled out my phone and called Greg. It went straight to voicemail. I tried again. Still voicemail. The driver walked back to his truck and started lowering the hook. "Wait," I said. "Just wait. Let me get this sorted out." He stopped and checked his watch. "I can give you 10 minutes," he said. "After that, I have to follow the order." I tried Greg again. This time, he picked up. "What?" he said, and I could hear the frustration in his voice. "There is a tow truck at my house right now," I said. "The driver says you called him." "I did not call anyone," Greg said. "Hold on. I heard him typing." "Denise submitted another work order this morning," he said. "She used my name on the authorization. I am canceling it right now." I put the phone on speaker and held it up so the tow driver could hear. "Greg, can you tell this guy the order is canceled?" I said. The driver leaned in. "This is dispatch," Greg said. "Work order is canceled. Do not tow that vehicle." The driver sighed and pulled out his phone to confirm. A minute later, he raised the hook and climbed back into his cab. "You are lucky," he said as he drove off. "That lady was real insistent." I stood there in the driveway, my heart still pounding, and watched as Denise pulled up in her golf cart. She parked at the curb and got out, walking toward me with that same smug smile. "You are running out of time," she said. "This is not going away." I held up my phone, the call with Greg still connected. "You just committed fraud," I said. Greg heard the whole thing. Denise's smile flickered. "I am performing my duties," she said. "You are impersonating a management company employee," I said. "That is a crime." She turned and walked back to the golf cart without another word, but I could see her hands shaking as she climbed in. That afternoon, I got a call from Eric. He had been digging through the neighborhood Facebook group, and he found something interesting. "Remember that post Denise made about the thefts?" he said. "Yeah," I said. "Check the edit history," he said. Someone archived it before she could delete it. I pulled up the group on my laptop and found the post. Eric had sent me a link to a cached version, and when I compared it to the current version, I saw what he meant. Denise had edited the post 3 times, each time changing the details to make it sound more like I was the suspect. The original version did not mention me at all. It was a generic warning about locking cars, but in the edits, she added lines about a resident under investigation and suspicious activity near my address. "She is building a narrative," Eric said. "And she is sloppy. Save everything." I screenshotted the cached versions and added them to my evidence binder. Then I started looking at the other complaints she had filed. Greg had sent me copies of the incident reports, and when I laid them out side by side, I saw what he meant about the identical templates. Every single report used the same wording, the same format, the same paragraph structure. The only things that changed were the dates and the specific items allegedly stolen. It was like she had created a Mad Libs version of a theft report and just filled in the blanks. I pulled out my phone and called Greg again. "I think I found something," I said. "I need you to look at the metadata on these reports." "What am I looking for?" he asked. "Creation dates," I said. "I think she wrote all of these at the same time and just backdated them." Greg was quiet for a moment. "Send me the files," he said. "I will check." I forwarded everything, and an hour later my phone rang. "You were right," Greg said. "Every single report was created on the same day 2 weeks ago. She wrote them all at once and printed them with different dates. That is fraud." "What do we do?" I asked. "We confront her," Greg said. "And we do it in person. I am setting up a meeting for tomorrow. Be there at 10. The meeting was at the management company office again, but this time, Greg had brought his boss, a woman named Sharon who ran the regional operations. She was in her 50s, with gray hair and the kind of no-nonsense attitude that made you sit up straight. Denise showed up with her file cart and a fresh stack of papers, but Sharon did not let her get started. "We need to talk about your complaint process," Sharon said. Denise stiffened. "What about it?" she asked. Sharon slid a printed report across the table. "This document says it was created on September 8th, she said, but the incident it describes allegedly happened on August 20th. How do you explain that?" Denise glanced at the paper. "That is a clerical error," she said. "It is not," Sharon said. "Every report you filed has the same issue. They were all created on the same day, weeks after the incidents you are claiming happened." Denise's face went red. "I was organizing my records," she said. "That does not mean anything." Sharon opened a folder and pulled out another sheet. "This is a portal audit log," she said. "It shows that you accessed the security system multiple times on days when no incidents were reported. And it shows that you generated export reports from your account and tried to attribute them to other residents. That is falsification of records." Denise stood up. "I am protecting this community," she said. "You are harassing a resident," Sharon said, "and you are filing false complaints. That is a violation of your HOA agreement and potentially a criminal matter. I have already contacted our legal team." Denise looked at me, then back at Sharon. "You cannot do this," she said. "I am the social chair." "Not anymore," Sharon said. Effective immediately, you are suspended from all HOA duties pending investigation. And if we find evidence that you have been stealing, we will be turning this over to the police." Denise grabbed her papers and shoved them into the file cart. "This is not over," she hissed. She stormed out, and the door slammed behind her. Sharon turned to me. "I am sorry you had to deal with this," she said. "We take these matters seriously, and we will make sure you are not penalized for any of her false claims." I nodded, still processing what had just happened. "What about the thefts?" I asked. "Are they even real?" Sharon sighed. "We are reviewing everything," she said. "But based on what we have found so far, we believe Denise may have been involved. We are pulling security footage and cross-referencing access logs. If we find proof, we will pursue charges." I left the office feeling lighter than I had in days, but I knew Denise was not going to let this go quietly. And I was right. That evening, she showed up at the mailbox cluster while I was grabbing my mail. She parked the golf cart right behind me, blocking my path. Several neighbors were already there, pulling letters and packages from their boxes, and they all turned to watch. "You think you won?" Denise said, her voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "You did not win anything. You are still a thief." I turned to face her, keeping my voice calm. "I have proof I did not steal anything," I said. "And the management company has proof you falsified reports." She laughed, but it was sharp and bitter. "Proof," she said. "You think proof matters? I have this entire community on my side." One of the neighbors, an older man named Mr. Cho, stepped forward. "Actually, Denise," he said, "I saw the Facebook post edits. You changed your story 3 times." Denise whipped around to face him. "Stay out of this," she snapped. Another neighbor, a woman named Lisa, spoke up. "I got one of your notices too," she said. "You accused me of leaving my trash cans out too long. But I have photos that prove I brought them in on time." "You are making stuff up." Denise's face went purple. "You are all against me," she said. "You are all covering for him." Mr. Cho shook his head. "No one is covering for anyone," he said. "We just want the truth." Denise grabbed a keyring out of her pocket and held it up. "You want the truth?" she said. "Fine. I have been keeping records of every single person in this neighborhood who has violated HOA rules. I have photos, timestamps, and witness statements. And I am going to make sure every single one of you pays." She was shaking now, her voice cracking. Lisa pulled out her phone. "Are you threatening us?" she asked. "Because I am recording this." Denise looked at the phone, then at the small crowd that had gathered, and for the first time I saw fear in her eyes. She turned and got back into the golf cart, and the amber light started blinking faster as she drove off. That night I got a call from Greg. "We pulled the security footage from the clubhouse," he said. "And you need to see this." He sent me a video file, and I opened it on my laptop. The footage was from a camera mounted in the hallway outside the mailroom, and it showed Denise walking in with a shopping bag. She looked around, then unlocked the mailroom door with a key. The timestamp matched the day of the alleged theft. I watched as she went inside and came out a few minutes later with the bag noticeably fuller. She locked the door behind her and walked out of frame. "There is more," Greg said. "We checked the charity cash box incident. Same thing. She was the last person near the table, and we have footage of her putting something into her file cart." I stared at the screen. "So she was stealing," I said, "and framing me for it." "Exactly," Greg said. "We are turning this over to the police. And we are refunding any fees you were charged related to her complaints." The next day, a deputy showed up at Denise's house. I did not see it happen, but Eric texted me a photo from his window. The deputy was standing on her porch, talking to her while she gestured wildly. A few hours later, I got a call from Sharon. "The police have opened an investigation," she said. "They are reviewing all the footage we provided, and they are interviewing residents who reported missing items. We also found something interesting in her file cart." "What?" I asked. "A stash box," Sharon said. It was hidden under a false bottom. Inside, we found several items that matched descriptions of things that were reported stolen. Sunglasses, a charging cable, some petty cash, and a few packages that were never delivered. She had been hoarding them. I felt a surge of anger. "So she was stealing from everyone," I said. "And blaming me." "Yes," Sharon said. "And we are taking action. The HOA board is meeting tomorrow to discuss her removal, and we are recommending that residents file a joint complaint with the police." The board meeting happened at the clubhouse, and I was invited to attend. The room was packed with neighbors, all of them buzzing with anger and disbelief. Sharon stood at the front and laid out the evidence. She played the security footage on a projector, showing Denise entering and leaving the mailroom with the shopping bag. She showed the portal audit log, highlighting the fact that every complaint form had been uploaded from Denise's account on the same day. And then she brought out the stash box. It was a small gray plastic bin with a locking lid, and when she opened it, the room went silent. Inside were the sunglasses, the cash, the packages, and a few other items that people immediately recognized as theirs. "That is my charging cable," someone said from the back. "Those are my sunglasses," said another voice. Sharon nodded. "All of these items were found in Denise Porter's possession," she said. "And based on the evidence, we believe she has been systematically stealing from residents and filing false complaints to cover her tracks." One of the board members, a man named Dave, stood up. "I move that we immediately terminate Denise Porter's position as social chair," he said, "and I recommend we pursue legal action for theft and fraud." The motion was seconded and passed unanimously. Sharon continued. "The management company will also be refunding any fees that were assessed based on Miss Porter's false complaints," she said. "And we are implementing new oversight procedures to prevent this from happening again." She looked directly at me. "I want to apologize on behalf of the association," she said. "You were targeted unfairly, and we failed to catch it sooner." The room erupted in applause, and I felt a weight lift off my chest. But the best part came 2 days later. Denise was required to return all the stolen items in person, and the board scheduled a public event at the clubhouse for residents to reclaim their property. I showed up early, along with about 20 other neighbors, and we waited in the lobby. Denise arrived with a cardboard box, her face pale and drawn. She set the box on a table and started pulling out items one by one. Each time someone claimed something, she had to hand it over and sign a log confirming the return. It was humiliating, and she knew it. She would not make eye contact with anyone, and her hands shook as she scribbled her signature over and over. When she pulled out the pair of sunglasses, a neighbor named Carlos stepped forward. "Those are mine," he said. "They were taken from my car 2 weeks ago." Denise handed them over without a word. "You accused me of leaving my car unlocked," Carlos said. "But you are the one who broke in." Denise's jaw tightened, but she did not respond. When the box was finally empty, Sharon handed Denise a printed letter. "This is your formal notice of termination and suspension," she said. "You are no longer permitted to participate in any HOA activities, and you are banned from accessing any association facilities or records. Additionally, the board is pursuing restitution for all stolen items and fraudulent fees." Denise took the letter and walked out without a word. The amber light on her golf cart blinked one last time as she drove away, and I never saw her again. A week later, I got a check in the mail from the management company. It was a full refund of the fees I had been charged, plus a written apology from the board. The letter also included a note from Sharon explaining that the security vendor had refused to work with Denise anymore after learning about the fraud, and that the police investigation was ongoing. I framed the letter and hung it in my home office as a reminder that sometimes the system actually works. The neighborhood settled down after that. The Facebook group went quiet, the mailbox cluster stopped being a war zone, and people started saying hello again when they saw me. Mr. Cho invited me to a block party, and Lisa brought over cookies as an apology for not speaking up sooner. It felt good to be part of the community again, instead of constantly looking over my shoulder. And every time I drove past the empty spot where Denise used to park her golf cart, I smiled. Looking back, the whole thing was absurd. A klepto HOA social chair with a file cart and a god complex, framing residents to cover her own thefts. But it taught me something important. When someone tries to bury you with lies and paperwork, the best thing you can do is stay calm, gather evidence, and let them hang themselves with their own words. Denise thought she was untouchable because she had a title and a laminated policy sheet. But in the end, a portal export that showed the complaint forms were uploaded from one device and a timeline that collapsed under basic scrutiny were all it took to bring her down. And watching management hand me the written correction while Karen watched was the most satisfying moment of the entire nightmare. The HOA refunded fees tied to the false accusation. Denise was forced to return items, and the return happened in front of witnesses, and the board made it clear that this kind of behavior would not be tolerated. The funny part, Denise had insisted on a printed deadline for one of her own fake violations, and when someone checked the metadata, the creation date on her own document contradicted her timeline by 2 weeks. She got hoisted by her own paperwork, and it was beautiful. I still live in Harbor Point, and I still deal with HOA rules and notices. But now I know how to fight back when something is not right. I document everything, I keep my evidence organized, and I do not let anyone push me around with fake authority and laminated sheets. And if another wannabe dictator ever tries to frame me for something I did not do, I will be ready. Because the truth always wins, as long as you are willing to fight for it. Take care, and I will catch you in the next one.